Welcome to the League of Women Voters of Chicago, Zooming with the Alderman series of interviews. My name is Tina Brady Pettis. Before I begin, I would like to talk to you about a few historical facts about the League. 101 years ago, the League was established right here in the city of Chicago. The League is a nonpartisan political organization which encourages the informed, active participation of citizens in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues and influencing public policy through education and advocacy. The Chicago League is one of 100 of local leagues all across the country. These interviews with the Alderman are part of our efforts to educate people about those who represent us and setting the policies and ordinances that govern us here in Chicago. Today, our guest is Alderman Jason C. Ervin of the 28th Ward. Welcome, Alderman Ervin.
Thank you for having me.
We appreciate you taking the time to be with us. Please know that the Zoom session is being recorded and will be available for viewing today on the League website. We'll be sending you, Alderman Ervin, and everyone who registered for this program who is not a member, a link to the video when it becomes available. Also, everyone should know that we have provided the Alderman a copy of the questions I'll be asking ahead of time. Before starting on those questions, we want to show you a map of all of the 50 wards in Chicago. Now, here is a copy of just the 28th ward. Now, let's get started. Alderman Ervin, please describe your ward for us.
Well, today, we're in the process of having conversations about remapping, but today, the 28th Ward represents the communities of Austin, East Garfield, West Garfield, and portions of the near West Side, which includes the sub-communities of the West Loop, Little Italy, University Village. We also represent a small portion of the Pilsen and Little Village communities as well.
So what is considered like the makeup? Like, is it residential, commercial, industrial?
Well, I would call, from that aspect, all of us have residents, and that's how the basis of the wards are created. At the time we did the last census, approximately 50,000 residents, and we're still around this round, about 55,000 residents we will have after the remapping is done. But 50,000 or so residents. We are primarily the average property in my ward is a 2-flat building. So I have lots of 2-flat homes, some single family, very few single families in the western portion of the ward, some single families in the eastern portion of the ward, but predominant building in the ward is a multi-unit residential building.
Okay. What are the key issues facing the people of your ward?
Well, and that's interesting. I have a very diverse ward. I have individuals in this community that have PhDs in nuclear physics, and I also have folks that dropped out of grade school. So we've got a very diverse ward. We've got a diverse ward economically, where we have millionaires sitting nearby. In other parts of the community, we have people that are heavily reliant on public assistance. So our ward is very diverse, and depending upon where you are in the community and where you are in the ward, the issues can vary. Many areas, and I'll start from west and go back east, communities in East, West Garfield, Austin, one of the major concerns of residents deal around public safety, access to fresh fruits and vegetables from a food desert perspective, as well as creative economic development opportunities for our young people and job readiness and development as a whole. Now, if I slide over to my eastern portion of the ward, and let me go back again, and another issue that it's global. Public safety and education are global issues, not only just in the 28th ward, but across the city. One concern that I face in the eastern portion of our ward is that residents feeling that they do not have an adequate public school option that by address is available for their children. When I say by address, meaning that you live at 1549 West Monroe, your school is X. So in some cases, they do not feel they have an adequate school for their children, and thus creates challenges where if your child doesn't get into a specific school and the only option is the neighborhood school, those families tend to move in search of better educational opportunities versus paying thousands of dollars in private school tuition for their children. So I know that is a very core issue in the eastern portion of our ward, and has been a core conversation in portions of the West Loop and University Village near West community going on for the last probably 15 years. Now, my ward started previously under the 2000 map. Our ward didn't even go into the near West community. After the 2010 map, we moved further east into the near West community, and that's when we picked up a very diverse population, which I think is good for the ward on an overall basis. I think having diverse opinions, diverse conversations helps all of us. So as we move further east, we got different sets of issues. Everyone has issues, but they're just different. And our goal has been to work through all of those issues to provide the best representation possible for everyone in our ward.
Thank you so much for that in-depth answer regarding your ward. When did you first join the city council?
So I joined the city council as data cemented in my mind, January 13th, 2011. I was actually appointed alderman. I finished out the term of my predecessor, then Alderman Ed Smith of the 28th Ward, who had served in the city council for 28 years. I was actually I am the last appointee of Mayor Richard M. Daley in his tenure in office. And there were actually 3 of us appointed at the same time, and I'm the only one that is still in the council from that appointment date.
Why did you decide to run for Alderman in 2019?
I ran for Alderman in 2019 because I know the needs and understanding of the community. Being an alderman is like starting a new job. You think you know what it is, but until you get there and actually see what's happening and see how processes work, you really don't know. You see it from an outside view, you see it from a different perspective, but once you're actually in the seat and you're seeing multiple perspectives, different sets of information in these conversations, it's like you're drinking, as they say, drinking water out of a fire hose. And so in 2011, you run, you think hey, I know what this is, and we got this, and it's a piece of cake. And you get in the office like, wait a minute, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And you begin to learn. And in 2015, after your first term, you're still trying to figure out who to call for various items as a service. You're trying to still figure things out. By the time you get toward the middle or end of your second term, you start to learn the system. You start to learn who the go-tos are. And then you're finally able to start dealing with more policy-related stuff and trying to make changes into things that just aren't functioning the way that they should be. And so in 2019, I was in a position where I'm understanding what's going on. I know who the players are. And now we want to try to effectuate change in this term. The second portion of the reason I ran was that we were in the process that we're in now in the remapping process. Now, I served as a staff assistant, an advisor to former Alderman Ed Smith, who during the 2000 remapping process was the chairman of the Black Caucus. I also participated in the 2010 remap as a member of council. And here we are in 2020. This is actually the 3rd time I participated in the mapping process. And I feel that I have just as much experience as our senior members of the council, because no one was in the council for the 1990 remapping. But today, all of our members, and there are only actually 3 members that were in office in 2000 that participated in the 2000 process that I was working with the former alderman on. And that was another reason why I ran for alderman, was to participate in this process, to help guide the process, and ultimately to protect the interests of the west side of Chicago, as well as the south side of Chicago and the Black community overall in the city.
So besides being an alderman, do you have any other unemployment?
No, I have no other employment. I am prior to becoming an alderman, I spent a number of years as an auditor. I'm a certified public accountant by trade and my background. I'm also a licensed insurance broker, but I haven't done anything in those particular realms of any significance. I'll do my mother's taxes or help somebody out as they need it, but from an employment perspective, I don't practice in that manner.
Oh, okay. So alderman is just your specific job right now.
Yes.
Okay. Are you a chair or vice chair of any committees?
Yes, I actually am newly chair of the Committee on Contract, Equity and Compliance, just 2-3 months now. I serve as vice chair of the Workforce Development Committee. So those 2 committees also serve on the Committee on Finance, Budget, Education, and Rules. So we serve on other committees, but those 2 committees, Workforce Development and then Contract, Compliance and Equity, are committees that I have a leadership role on.
Congratulations on your new appointments.
Thank you.
What kind of matters become before your committees?
So that's interesting. In the past 2 months since I've been there, the matters that are coming forward deal around the issues of working to ensure participation from all communities in our city. We talk about contracts, we talk about equity. The only way we can have equity is that we all participate. So one of the things that one of the first pieces of legislation that was passed as I became chair dealt with the MBE-WBE program, which we on every so many years, which is every 5-year interval, we have to review the program, make sure that it's necessary based on our capacity and based on the amount of work that any community is receiving. So that was a major piece of legislation that went through our committee in the very first meeting that I held in the city council. So lots of good things. We're continuing to talk about ways in which we can empower communities via the city's purchasing power. People don't understand the city is a $15 billion operation. So we buy, various goods and services. A big chunk of that is personnel, but also at the same time, we have other things that we procure, and the way we procure can help empower other communities throughout our city. So these are the types of issues that we look at in this Committee on Contract, Equity and Compliance.
So as you know, as viewers know, that Chicago has been plagued with a lot of gun violence. What are a few of the actions by the city to reduce gun violence that you think have been effective or will be effective?
Well, that is that's the elephant in the room. We talk about Chicago, we talk about the gun violence. And really, I think the resources that we are placing toward a violence reduction, and it ultimately is about helping people get in positions where they can have a good life, and that's highly subjective, because one person's definition of a good life and someone else's definition of a good life may be 2 different things. And what we are working to do is show those that are likely or prone to be in violent situations or are hanging around people that are in violent situations, to try to show them a different way. May not necessarily be a better way to them, but a different way to help them avoid the challenges that exist in the streets when things delve into the situation of gun violence. And what I mean by that is helping individuals with the traumatic experiences that they've living in some areas of our city. It's hard to avoid hearing gunshots. It's hard to avoid not necessarily seeing the red tape and the yellow tape on a block, on your block, or on the block next to you in your community. So these things lead to traumatic experiences, and that trauma continues to build in some of our young people. So we have to help them, I'll call it decompress, and think about things in a different manner. Also, we have to make sure that they are adequately skilled. Is one thing to talk about, hey, we've got decent opportunities for employment for you, but if you don't have the skill set necessary to take advantage of that employment, the job means nothing. And in the one thing that's always easy, it's to you and I, it looks like it's easy to go out and stand on the corner and sell, bags of drugs, or it's easy to go stick a gun in somebody's face and take their car away from them to go and sell it to somebody else for a profit. But these are fairly hard things that people are, having to do in order to just survive. And so it's incumbent upon us to help them see a different way, a different opportunity, but we also have to provide them the necessary tools that they will need to be successful in these particular endeavors. And that's where I think that on the violence prevention side, that we have to work to not only provide opportunities, but to make people ready for the opportunities, to give them an alternative to the lifestyle in which they're choosing to live. And again, it's something my dad would tell me growing up. He says, door number one or door number two. And so we have to help people get to the right door and participate in a function in the best way.
Okay, as I understand you, you were saying that we need like programs to assist people who are exposed to gun violence. Can you touch on like the part, like the mental health part of gun violence towards people, and what can be helped with those people?
Well, again, and that's what we talked about, the lived experience, the trauma, and getting people the necessary counseling that they need to deal with these challenges that they face. And it's very easy. Some communities, they will not, let's take, I always compare, I live in Garfield Park, and I always use Lincoln Park as a comparison. A child in Lincoln Park may have never seen yellow tape other than on television, or red tape other than television, where kids in Garfield Park, literally see this stuff on a regular basis. And it's not something they see on TV. It's something they see live and in person right there with them. Some people don't understand the fact that, why is this police car always sitting on the corner of my block with its lights flashing? These are things that we don't think about, but some of our young people internalize to a point where it devalues their self-esteem. It makes it feel as that they are less than. And sometimes when you're feeling that you are less than, you mean, and sometimes people feel they don't have anything to lose in life. When you ask a young person, hey, will I see 21? I guarantee you ask a kid in Lincoln Park, oh, 21, yeah, I'll be attending the University of Illinois, or I'll be attending the University of Michigan. Kids, you ask that kid the same question in the Garfield Park, kid may look and say, man, I just want to be living, or I don't know if I'm gonna see 21. I don't know if I'm gonna see 18. I don't know if I'm gonna see 15. These are that's the type of difference in trauma that we're seeing in our city with kids that live literally 3-4 miles apart in a metropolitan area.
Thank you for your passion on trying to eradicate these issues with your community. League members have observed that the council committee regularly pass agenda items for which the actual contents and text of what is being approved and not available for the public to see until days after the meeting. These results in the public not having a chance to comment before the vote is taken. Would you support requiring that any such items may be available to the public no later than 2 business days prior to the meeting?
I think that there's some items that we move on that require greater public input, and I'll give you a case in point right now. Just on yesterday, which today is December 2nd, December 1st, the City of Chicago Committee on Committees and Rules produced a map for the City of Chicago that's redistricting all of the wards in the city. I'll say this, I believe that major processes, major things require lots of time for socialization, for people to comment, for people to look at and see, and for additional input. And that happens. that happens with our budget process, that happens in appropriations, it happens with our tax levy, and it's happening with our mapping process. Many times we go through these processes and there's been back and forth. We start at one place, we have conversations, we get public input, we end at another place, and then we move that particular ordinance forward. One thing I will say is that we do not, in my opinion, pass ordinances without the necessary input. I haven't seen an ordinance just come down from anywhere from the administration and just say, hey, we need to pass this without some deliberate thought and some deliberate conversations and generally deliberation in the public. You know, we start at one point, we put it in the public atmosphere. The community is empowered through their elected representatives. And, you know, many times we continue to negotiate and keep moving. And we get to a point where it's what the community's asked for. It's what everybody is comfortable with. Moving forward on those items, I think is generally in the best interest of the community, because sometimes they're time sensitive. Sometimes they're things that people want to get implemented in a much quicker method. So while I do believe that we do this, I would not want to make it a total absolute that we do it that way, because there may be some things that we need to do in an expeditious manner that have the support and input of all sections of our communities.
Okay. What is your view about using ranked choice voting in February to determine the winner in lieu of the runoff?
That's interesting. I actually I looked at the New York elections this past go around, and I really kind of studied how it worked, and I thought it was very interesting way of doing things. One of the major drawbacks that I saw to it was the time in which it took to get results. And I know that many of our communities are like, they go, polls close at 7, they're on the computer at 7:15 looking for those first round of results to start moving and to start coming in. And so I wonder if people will be patient enough to go through and deal, you know, with waiting weeks upon end to figure out who's on first or who's on second in a particular election contest. I will say this, the system that we moved away from, the change from a partisan system to a nonpartisan system, I think was somewhat rooted in a way trying to not allow certain communities to be able to participate at their highest level. And I think that goes back to the '83 election of Harold Washington and subsequent re-election. And then afterward, we get this nonpartisan system that requires 50 plus 1. What I do find interesting is that in the state of New York, where there is partisan system, I particularly can understand the way that they've got it set up. But in a nonpartisan system, I think that what we have today does work. Now, if we went back to a partisan system, I think it would be something to talk about as it relates to, should we have runoffs, and that there not be a, you know, in a primary, that the person that gets the most votes, who may not have the majority of the voters participating, is declared the victor in that particular contest, unless there are only 2 people participating. So I would be very interested to see how that particular method of voting would work in a partisan contest. But I think in a nonpartisan contest, the way that we elect in the city of Chicago, I don't necessarily think that's the most accurate or best way to elect people.
Thank you for your views. If the league wants to support one of your initiatives, what step would you recommend the league to take?
Well, I would recommend that number one, just reach out to us. One of the biggest things that I'm focused on and working on is the City of Chicago remapping process, and trying to work to preserve a representative number of African American wards in the City of Chicago. Currently, there are 18 actually 20 African American aldermen, 18 traditional African American wards. After the census was performed, that number dipped down to 15 wards, and now with the reapportionment we're looking to put that number at 17 based upon changes and shifts in population. So if people want to help us in the effort to work in a mapping process that essentially has been endorsed by a supermajority of the members of the council, and working to preserve the integrity of communities, as well as the individual communities in which people come from. I'm a firm believer that, you know, people that are elected by their community, that's why we elect representatives. The whole state of Illinois, and if you look at a public act from the state of Illinois, says, you know, it is we the people through our elected representatives are stating such. And so I think our elected representatives, again, these are people that have been duly elected into office to represent the views of a particular community in our city, and that we need to respect the wishes of those people that have sent their representatives to do their business.
So quick question, how much of a follow-up do you get from your constituents? Do you go door to door? Do you have always someone in your office to actually answer questions? I know there is a lot of questions about budget, like if something like has
Yes.
a pothole or something. A lot of people don't understand if you have a budget that's allocated that 1 year, certain things are not be able to get resolved. So do you actually tell your constituents this so it could be less complaints, so they'll understand the process and the procedure where you have to take place as being an alderman as well?
Well, there are a couple of things. Number one, we have our menu funds that we work to address across the board on capital needs and capital improvements. But then we also have what I call day-to-day service items that are generally departmental responsibilities that need to be taken care of. Many times people call our office with various complaints, and it's our job to try to help them get resolution to the complaints they have. Surprisingly, many items that come to us in the aldermanic role aren't actually city functions. Sometimes they're state functions, sometimes they're county functions, and even federal functions. But we are the first line of defense because everybody pretty much knows who their alderman is. And that's the number that they can find. You ask a person in Chicago, well, who's my state rep? And they probably don't know it. Or my state senator, or who's the county commissioner in this area. Most people do tend to know their congressperson, but the aldermanic office really is where the rubber meets the road, and we're generally the first line of defense. But we encourage our residents to reach out to us if they have questions, they have concerns, and it's our job to try to help them find resolutions to those issues.
Okay. What are several things you would like to get done or at least started during the remainder of the term, which ends in 2023?
Well, the primary issue I'm trying to get done is our remapping of our city. That I know we will get done by one way or one method or another. But I think it's important that people understand the process, people understand what's happening and what the potential repercussions are of one way or another way. Another item that I've worked for and championed on is around public safety, and the fact that we experience excessive amounts of violence and excessive amounts of what I would just call the function of criminal loitering. And these are individuals who have what we say no business on a certain location other than to bring negative activity to a community. This is a case in point. I've started, there's an area in my ward, a business area in our ward along the Madison-Pulaski corridor that has been inundated by narcotic sales. And we've been working with the police, and we're navigating the laws as it relates to the sale of cannabis. And quite frankly, they've placed cannabis in kind of like just leave it alone, and it's nothing that we need to be worried about. However, my residents, people that don't even live in the ward, people that from around the city, come here and say, why is this open air, cannabis selling just so blatant and wanton, and basically being done in the presence of law enforcement? And so we have worked along with the 11th district, and I also got the state's attorney and corporation counsel involved. and working toward not only effectively trying to prosecute these cases, but also looking at city ordinances and rules and by which we can make it more than just a slap on the wrist for literally disrupting people's everyday living and trying to just get goods and services in their community. Because when your business district suffers, your community suffers. Those are jobs, those are taxes. And if somebody decides to take that out to the suburbs, on the west side, I'm only a few miles away from Oak Park. So it's very easy for someone to just say, all right, let me just go over to Oak Park and make this purchase, or go over there and do this. And we want to capture and keep those dollars on our side of the border in the city of Chicago. So again, we work toward trying to help and protect our residents, and really, I would say, give people opportunities to excel in life. And it's very difficult to do that in an unsafe environment.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Alderman Ervin. Thank you so much for being with us today, and thank you for this candid conversation. Reminder to everyone watching, a link to this program will be found on the Chicago League website, and everyone who is registered for today's program who is not a League member will receive an email for the link. Please join the League in January for future interviewing with the Aldermans. Have a safe holiday.
Thank you.